Hello Saberites, let's look over the brand new KR Sabers Chapter 16, inspired by Luke Skywalker's lightsaber from Chapter 16 of Mandalorian. So, got some beautiful artwork on the box, thanks to Christian Cruz. Always does wonderful work. Let's look inside the box. And what do we get? So, we've got an Allen key in a big baggie. Excuse if you see any dog hair floating around, I've got the fan on, it's very, very hot today. And down here, we have got a switch PCB. We have got our arrows, red and green. That's quite a bit of manoeuvring. We've got an accurate blade plug, which actually threads onto the hilt. It's not really a plug. And then let's see if I can get this out. Bit of a pinch and squeeze. There we go. We've got a closed pommel cap for screen accuracy. And then we have the hilt itself, the main attraction. Here we are. Looks good. Right, let's get a few things out of the way. And run over a couple of bits on the hilt itself. Right, so the emitter, to change out your emitter cap from the extension to allow a blade to go through to the static one, you just unthread it like so, take your other one, thread it in, and then to access your blade retention screws, what you do is thread this back on, is unscrew the lower part of the entire emitter, like so. So the actual emitter part consists of 3 parts, not including the grub screws, and then you've got 1, 2, 3 grub screws for your blade retention, and that should help. The reason there's not 4 is because you want to have a good amount of surface making contact with the inside wall here, so that will do nicely. And then additionally, if you keep on threading it down further, you've got a retention screw here for your PCB holder, so you don't have to worry about gluing anything in. You put your PCB in, you push it down with the wires, and then you tighten up that grub screw there, and you're good to go. No glue required. Also means you can access it if there's anything wrong quite easily. So you just thread that back up. Now, because there's quite a few bits and bobs going on up here, I will say once you're happy with your assembly, if you're going to install it, or if you're not going to install it, put the tiniest dab of thread lock on this thread here, tiniest dab. Don't go crazy, use the lightest stuff, but it'll also help you a lot. And then you'll also need to, if you're installing this, access this area here, but that's nice and easy. This whole upper grenade section unthreads to reveal a nice crystal chamber. And then once we come to the pommel section, yes, you can unscrew this cap down at the bottom here, which you can replace for the screen accurate one without a sound vent groove, to get the clocking you desire. But the additional feature of this one is when you come to undo the bottom end to get your battery and your speaker in and out, you don't have to worry about gripping the pommel cubes and then undoing them by accident. You just grip the upper portion here like so, and the whole thing comes off. So you don't have to worry about undoing your clocking for the pommel cubes. And then you're left with this nice empty sleeve here. And as much as I wanted to try and get the switches underneath the black cubes, because for accuracy these sit right on the edge of the box rather than being inset, there really wasn't a good way to make a plunger system for these without there being either a massive gap between the two surfaces or having a giant pocket in the side of the control box here. There's no neat solution for that. So this is the first time I think anybody's done this. I opted to make the arrows the buttons, your green and your red arrow, hence why they're oddly shaped compared to what you've seen in other manufacturers' builds. And then to get access to all of that, you slide your PCB up or down, whichever way is easiest, in this case down. And then you've got two crosshead screws here which hold the entire control box onto this sleeve. You've also got two nylon screws there which you back out to get that nice bit of friction you want for sliding the clamp card on and off. And if we undo these, always make sure you're using the right size screwdriver, please. And then you can see a bit of a configuration down here for getting your switch NeoPixel PCB in. So let's come a bit closer to the camera for this. You can see you've got your pads there to solder onto, and then you've got your switches with a pixel next to each of them. Nice, neat solution, and actually not too hard to wire up. And then that will slot down here, just like that, after you've put your arrows into place. In fact, shall I demonstrate that now? Okay, I believe the green arrow, could be wrong, I believe the green arrow goes up top, so that's slid in. Fiddly, but once you get it, it goes in. And when you actually come to solder this up, I recommend a bit of 3M tape on the back, very thin 3M tape on the back. But as you can see here, I've just nudged the green one out of position. There we go, back in. I'll put that back in there and hold the PCB in place. Got some nice tactile feedback on the switches. Not complicated, nice and easy, loads of room in there for passing your wires through. So that is that. What I have to install on my Hilt here is I have an Eco Max chassis. So that consists of a few parts. Obviously I've done a bit of preparation. We have a thin neck PCB, a 20 a 20 MPXL ring accent up here in the very top part of the chassis with some nice clear resin to help diffuse it a little bit. We've got a crystal, we've got a motor spinning the spinny plasma gate thingamabob, technical term, Bluetooth unit, OLED screen, Profi board, kill switch, battery speaker connector internally. Now you have to be really good with your wire management if you're going to do the Eco Max, purely because, let's see if we can even see it down there. You can't really. Oh, kind of, there you go. But you have to be really good with your wire management behind the Profi board. There is also going to be an KSith, which has my traditional thread off the top to pull the chamber off to access your board thing that I have for fin necks, that I do for fin necks. The only reason you ever need to do that is for fin necks. And then you've got your battery holder. Now I have mine set up for a 4-second delay when you put it in. So if I put it in now, kill switch is not turned on. Oh, it is turned on. It is turned on. So you see the green light doesn't go on straight away. Turn it on, wait 4 seconds, and it'll boot.
Come, little one.
There we go. So the 4-second delay that I put on the Profi board here is to help give you time to put this in, thread up the pommel, and then it will boot, rather than making a dodgy connection and possibly booting a couple of times whilst you're trying to thread it all up. So that's nice and easy. And then you have your other side of your fin neck PCB pin side here, which will go nice and easily in between these two sections here. This is probably the easiest fin neck to ever wire up. And that's done. That's in position. And then when you're ready, you remove this, of course. Put your PCB holder in there, solder up your PCB, connect your PCB to your PCB holder, push it all the way down, and do up that PCB retention grub screw that's hidden underneath this big sleeve here. It's a long thread. That screw right there. So as I say, no glue, it's not very fiddly, it's very simple, probably the simplest Luke hilt to wire up out there that has a nice reveal section underneath the grenade section. So yeah, I am going to cut in a moment to start installing this, start going through my process of installing this. Do note, if you are doing the EcoMax, because the board is down here and hidden underneath the sleeve here, you still have access to your USB and your SD card, no problems at all. And if you wanted to access the 2 buttons to reset your Profi board, you can still do that by removing the control box. So it's very well hidden and out the way. If you're doing the KSith or the Eco, you don't have to worry about that. It's up here in this section here, and on the KSith you unthread the top bit to pull off the chamber and you can get access to your board. Eco, you don't have to worry about that at all. So yeah, nice and easy, and you still have access to your kill switch once it's all assembled. So it's a very neat design, but it requires the installer to be super neat with how they're putting their wires inside here and to pay attention. But that's it. Right, I'm going to start installing all of this. I'm going to clear my bench and start working my way through it. I'll cut here and I'll come back to you in just a sec. Okay, hopefully you can see now I've got my PCB wired up with my fin neck connector down here. So I think it's going to be easier because you're going to have naturally a bit of looser wire around here. It's to get the PCB holder sat down the bottom there. Use an Allen key. There's so many available to me. Which one do I want to use? The right one, preferably. And just pinch up. Dog hair. Pinch up PCB holder just a little bit. You're going into print, you don't need to ratchet it. As you can see, that sits down there quite nicely. So we can thread this up. By the way, I've already added a bit of thread lock between the main body of the emitter to the brass bit. Just a tiny bit of purple, nothing crazy, something I can undo if I really need to. And then I've got this bit here, which I will cram through, technical term. This is the fiddly bit. Let's just try twisting motion. See where we get with that. Oh yeah, there we go. Good old twisteroo. the wires, big wires, shove them down the hole. There's lots of space down here, lots of holes, lots of hole space, sorry, to get your wires down, and then plug this down there, thread it up, and then that's the emitter done. So good thing we can do right now is test it. I can also show you that I've put the main chassis into the sleeve here. The top screw of the control box that's underneath the clamp card is what pinches onto your print. So we can actually test this now. Got all my wires poking through as well, pretty easy to feed through. So let's just make sure everything is working, make sure I haven't got any dodgy connections anywhere. Stay there. Battery here. Wait for it.
Come, little one.
And there we go. Nice test. We're all lit up. Part way there. Okay, so I've now soldered in my PCB. Alright, so just to note, switch 1 is this switch here, switch 2 is this switch here. The pixels are in line with themselves, so it's not two separate data lines, it's one. And there is a data out as well if you wanted to run those pixels in line with something else in your install. Right, so let's give it a quick test fire before we start assembling everything into its positions.
May the force be with you.
So green's working, red's working. So I've made my top green arrow will be my power, and my bottom one will be my aux. It's very loud. Cool, so we're happy that's working. Now, one thing you've got to be aware of, your soldering on the back of this PCB has got to be really good, because you are putting it in a metal control box. So the great thing is there's loads of wire room here, so you can compress these wires down, do all your cram through. But one thing I'm going to do in addition is I'm going to grab a piece of 3M tape. You know I love this stuff. And just put a couple of tabs on the back to make sure that the solder joints stay away from any metallic items, so we don't get any shorts. So I'm just going to do that. I might put another little bit on the back of the other side. You want to make sure you've got thin strips. You don't want to be using very thick tape, otherwise you're going to remove the switches from the PCBs and then you'll have to buy a new PCB. Right. Get that away. This is where the fun begins. This gets a bit fiddly, but it's okay. Let's get the arrows in first. So you've got to get your arrows in and then make sure you don't drop them and lose their positions. 1, 2. Stay where you are. Stay. So peel the back of the 3M tape. Twists. and then place it in. Green tape is doing its job nicely. I'm just going to push the PCB away a little bit, like so. I just want to save the chance of those solder connections or the wires making contact with the shelf. We'll do another quick test.
He doesn't want to go with you. He wants your permission.
There we go. Look at that. Okay, right. And then the final bit of assembly to unscrew that screw. Put it in there. Do that in a moment. Put that down. Like so. And remember, this screw here is what's pinching and holding the whole chassis in, so make sure you're pushing your chassis in at the same time. There we go, that's nice. Don't need to go too tight, but it's nice to know it's nice and secure. And then if you need to unscrew the nylon grub screws a little bit to get a little bit more friction, that's entirely up to you and your hilt. This one seems okay, look at that. Right, let's finally assemble it all. So what I like to do is do that. That is loud. That is really loud.
Enter volume menu.
Ah.
Volume menu end.
Okay. And then if we unscrew this, look at that. So loud. Job's a good one. Very, very happy with that. And you do actually have somewhat of a decent blade depth in there as well for a thin neck. So that is the KR Sabers Chapter 16. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.